Hi, it's Nathan. Sections 351 through 356 of the Model WHS regulations cover some more requirements for businesses that use hazardous chemicals. The first section basically says you need to manage the risk of the hazardous chemicals. Doesn't really help. You already had that legal duty anyway, but generally speaking, if you're using a hazardous chemical, refer to the SDS. It should be used and stored in accordance with the SDS. Other things you could consider: ensuring workers are trained and instructed in its use, making sure you're supplying PPE, having safe work procedures or standard operating procedures. Then these sections go on to talk about review, and it has specific requirements of when these control measures need to be reviewed. So it says that if health monitoring indicates that workers are being exposed or injured or harmed by chemical use, then we need to review the control measures. If atmospheric monitoring indicates that we're exceeding exposure standards, then we need to review. Obviously, if the SDS changes or is updated, then we need to review. And then if none of those happen, then at least every 5 years we need to review our controls to make sure they remain effective. Then it has some specific requirements for first is reactions, reactive substances, so things like acids and bases or oxidizers and flammable substances. So acids and bases will react, like that's like vinegar and baking soda is not a very dramatic one, but that's an example of an acid and a base that can react. And then oxidizers and flammables. Oxidizers will make a flammable burn hotter. So you can't store those two together. Then it talks about ignition sources, saying that we need to manage ignition sources when there's hazardous or flammable chemicals or in those areas where we're using them. It also talks about signage. So the main types of signage would be like, hey, hazchem here, PPE requirements, or no ignition sources. They're the most common ones. And then the final section is on storage. And generally speaking, storage should be done in accordance with the SDS. Hope that helps.